Okay, episode 2, here we go. Jason Gillette, biggest Cowboys fan. Biggest Cowboys fan out there.
Well, it's NFL opening weekend, and you didn't tell me we were going to be on video, so I'm wearing some swag.
It's perfect, I love it.
Yeah.
That you're representing for sure.
That's right.
America's team.
NFC East, let's go.
That's right. So, Jason, I worked with Jason at the car dealership. He's the best salesman I've ever met.
Oh, with that, but thanks.
Yeah. So he's really good. So I thought, for sure, I gotta have him on the podcast. So
yeah. Well, thanks for inviting me. This is fun.
Yeah, no problem. Episode 2, here we go. First question I got for you are: what are the main qualities that make an effective salesperson?
Sales is by far a mental job. So I always say, you can do a physical job. You can work in a factory where it was just, repetition, and mindless work. And sales is not like that. It is to some degree that you can practice and rehearse, but really you just have to bring like super focus and mental energy all the time and positivity. It's more about relationships than the product that you're selling.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether that's Learjets or toothbrushes or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You interact with your clients and you treat them, with respect, but also just having fun, and people are happy to do business.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So you built a big client base at Hanson Ford. That's where you work. And so how do you keep them coming back, and how have you created that?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the most challenging things to do. Is even if your clients love you, we are in an instant gratification society. So a lot of times, sparkly things will catch their attention, and they may purchase those without reaching out to somebody they trust, just because they've already been captivated by whatever the marketing is or the product is. So the best way that I have found for retention of my clients is to make sure I am in their faces. I've used social media mostly for that.
Yeah.
Depending on the area of the world you're in, one may be more better than the other, or depending on the product you're working with, TikTok may be better than Instagram, maybe better than X, maybe better than Facebook or YouTube, whatever you like. But I just find that social media does a great job of keeping me in front of my clients. It's like the old bus bench adage. When you just drive by the bus bench, it's just subliminally always in your face that, it's latent marketing.
Yeah.
That's how I keep my connection with people. Is I'm active on social media, very active both personally and professionally.
Yeah.
And it helps, clients that I maybe haven't been able to get in contact with. Maybe their contact information has changed, or they've moved, or whatever's happened. Social media bridges that gap and allows us to stay connected. So years down the road, they may reach out to me because they do see me so often.
Right. Yeah, and definitely makes you hard to forget, for sure.
Yes, exactly.
They're always seeing you.
Exactly. So I find that's my strategy, and I don't even know if it's a strategy. It's just I like doing it that way. Not everyone likes to be public, and people like to be private. I have no problem being public.
Right.
So, I don't have a problem posting all kinds of information, whether it's personal or, like, say, professional. So.
Yeah, so what do you do with social media? Like, what are your main streams?
My mainstream is, now it's time for a plug. I'm a
here we
YouTuber.
That's right.
Check out my channel, Jason Gillette, JasonGillett. I do main walk-around videos on vehicles, car reviews, tips and tricks. Also do some travel content, some motorcycle content, but mostly vehicle related, which is my industry. So those work really well together. So that is one way to keep, ask my clients to subscribe, follow my channel. So that pops up on YouTube a lot for them. I also have a strong influence on Facebook, where I live. Facebook, and also the average demographic I'm targeting is probably, let's say, 30 to 50-year-olds. Not that I don't target, 20 to 30 or above those ages, but that is prime automotive clientele. 30 to 50 is probably your prime you're cycling out of vehicles quite quickly in those stages of your life generally. So Facebook works well as that's the main demographic for that platform. I still use Instagram. I still use Twitter. I use TikTok, just not as much. And I may adapt. I'm always a big fan of you have to change or die. Yellow Pages was one of the biggest businesses in the world at one time. Blockbuster was one of the premium entertainment content. They are not anymore.
That's
because
right, yeah.
they refuse to change. So I use those platforms now. Talk to me in 10 years if I'm still doing this job, and I may have transitioned to a different style.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. A lot of adapting in the sales industry for sure. You can see the sales process change. Can you give me an example of that?
Yeah, so I used to use mail. I used to use a lot of Canada Post. Used to spend a ton of money in postage and send out a lot of mail, and that medium is not as well received anymore. So people don't pick up their mail. They don't read their mail. What comes in the mail. I mean, some things you do, but it's not as whereas so we transitioned to social media, even email to some bit. So those are the things that I used to do that I no longer do.
Yeah.
I used to do a newsletter, and not whether it's good or bad. Some people like newsletters still. I don't know. There's probably still a place for them. But instead of putting my focus into creating a newsletter, developing a newsletter, now I put my focus into making a TikTok video. So.
Yeah, cool. So another thing I recognize about you, you're really good at creating personal relationships with people right away. Do you want to explain a little bit about that?
So I mean, I have never had a problem talking to people. So if you are a social person, I always give the example, like when somebody needs to order pizza, there's not a lot of times you have a room full of people, you have 10 people, and you're like, hey, can somebody order pizza? There's like probably maybe 8 people that aren't super stoked to get on the phone and talk to another person. I was always that person. Okay. I was like, I'll order the pies. Guys, give me the phone. Let's go. I'll get this stuff going. As well as like events and things, I always found I was social that way. So having those social skills probably, maybe give you a leg up in sales.
For sure. Especially eagerness to get on the phone.
Yeah, I'm eager to speak with someone. I enjoy human contact. So, depending on your character, and it's introvert, extrovert, things like that.
Yeah.
Although I don't think there's a hard line there. There's many times where I'm very introverted. There's many times where I will watch 3 movies in a row by myself. I don't want anybody with me. I don't want anybody interrupting my time. Okay. So that's time when I'm not social.
Yeah.
But then there's many times where I can't sit still and I want to go sit at the bar in a lounge and just make friends.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's awesome. You see a lot of people go in and out of the sales business. Do you know what like the main problems are or problems they see would be?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so a couple of things. Again, back to instant gratification. Everybody wants to instantly be successful and instantly also make money, and a lot of it. So in sales, a lot of people get into it because they've heard that you're gonna make all this money.
Right.
And if you get into it and you make not all that money, then it could turn you off.
For sure.
Also, it's very hard, again, emotionally, mentally. So maybe you even do have some success. You start and you do really well right away. Yeah. And a lot of salespeople do because they're eager. You have positive attitude.
Right.
Again, it's very little about how to sell something or what you're selling. It's way more about your enthusiasm and your mental state. Okay. So when you start a job, it's like the honeymoon phase. You're excited to be there. You love all your coworkers. You love all your clients. You love this new product. You love all of it. Then what happens is things start to bore into your mind and chew away at your energy and your emotion. Whether maybe, after you were successful, you're not quite as successful. Maybe all of a sudden your coworkers are rubbing you the wrong way. You had a client rub you the wrong way. The product had a failure that was a challenge to deal with. And these things start to eat away at your energy. Then you start to not sell as much as you did when you first started. And before you know it, you're not making any money and things aren't going well. And 3 months later, you don't do that job anymore.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. How do you deal with the rejection you face? Because sales is a lot of rejection.
I was blessed and cursed with an incredibly short memory. So I can very quickly forget how terrible something was. I can also very quickly forget how great something was, which is
Okay.
not always the best thing.
Yeah.
But it's great when you're doing a performance job, and sales is like any type of job that's performance based. So if you're a professional athlete and your job is to score goals on a hockey team and you make an error, the quicker you can forget that error and get back to scoring goals, the better. Also, you can't ride too high. So even if you score 3 goals in a game, the next game you need to forget that you were so successful because you're back at ground zero and you need to score goals again.
That's right.
So you have to have a really, really bad memory or be able to just focus on, okay, the next thing. And I'm not perfect, don't get me wrong. There's been times in my career where I've rode too high, where I've rode too low, but I'm the most successful when I really just keep it even, forget the lows, forget the super highs, just keep that even keel.
That's right, yeah. I remember when I first started, you were telling me quite a bit. You used the analogy of Patrick Mahomes, no matter how good he is, he still has to practice. So how do you practice with your job?
Absolutely. So, and that's another trap to avoid as you become successful in sales or whatever you're doing, is getting an ego and thinking you're amazing. I've been humbled many, many, many times in life and in professional business where someone who is not as experienced as I was comes in and does something better than me or gets better results or is very successful. And I look at that and I just stop and I go, here is a moment, an opportunity to learn.
Cool.
So you have to just keep learning from everyone around you. So I mean, whether it's, wow, I at one point in time I didn't know anything about Facebook or TikTok or whatever, right? So I had to learn those things. And the other part of that really is your product. You really should be a professional, even though that's not the driving reason people necessarily purchase things from other people. A lot of times they already know the product very well. They're just looking for someone to help them purchase it.
Yeah.
But if you know your craft, you should know it.
For sure.
A musician, unless you have a disability, should know how to read music.
Yeah.
It takes time and effort to learn that, but you should know if that's going to be what you do.
For sure. Yeah. 100%. What keeps you motivated through the slow seasons? There's a lot of fast and slow seasons in the car sales industry.
Yeah, that's a tough thing. When you're in an industry that has peaks and valleys, and the automotive industry has a lot of that, trying to keep yourself motivated is difficult. I have a couple of things that motivate me. So my main motivations, I'm a little greedy. I do love money.
Okay.
And that's kind of a good thing to have if you're a salesperson, because if you think you can live off of $1 a day and you really don't need money, I found it's not the greatest quality in a salesperson because they aren't necessarily interested in hitting the highest target levels because they don't need the money.
Right.
If you know all I need to do is sell the bare minimum of product in order to make the bare minimum of money, which I am totally comfortable in making, then it gets hard to push yourself. So the money, it can be very motivational.
Yeah.
And then the other side of things is just, are you competitive with yourself, with your coworkers?
Yeah.
And Dale Carnegie is a very well-known person for his motivation and how to build friends and network and influence other people and do things like that. And one of his rules, rule number 21, is dueling guns, which is find someone to be competitive with, whether it's yourself or someone else, and let that competition push you to the next levels.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know for me, like, what keeps me motivated is, like, God has given me, like, a skill set and different gifts, and how can I be the best steward of those gifts that He has given me? That's personally where where it comes in for me.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody has to find different motivation. I mean, you have to find motivation. The world is a hard place. So just to get out of bed, to overcome tragedy, which is always going to happen, to, overcome all kinds of things, you have to find things to keep yourself moving forward. So find what works for you.
Yeah.
Again, there's certain things I find in sales that work, and that may not be the same thing that works in sales, may not be the same motivation that works in a podcast or building a home.
For sure.
Or whatever, if you work in a hospital and your job is to treat trauma patients, there might be a different motivation than competing with your peers or monetary gain.
For sure, yeah. So, cool. Controlling the situation in sales, you don't want to lose control. So what are some tips that you would have to maintain control throughout the process?
Okay, so there's lots of books written on these subjects, how to maintain control of a customer, how to keep things on track. And I mean, some people are pretty natural at it, but there really is techniques, and you can really study these things. And I always encourage that. I've done a lot of, learning on these kind of things, and the more you practice them, the better they get. But it comes down to some really basic principles, to be honest. It's really basic. So much like politicians do, acknowledging people's requests and then bridging that and moving on to what's important.
Yeah.
And not being afraid. So I think a lot of times the reason one person or another maybe has control, and it's a really negative way to look at it, to say control, because who wants to be controlled?
Right.
I don't want to be controlled as a buyer. I want to dictate things on my terms. Right. However, if I'm dealing with somebody who's good at their craft, I do want to have trust that they're going to walk me through the process. They should sell this product more than I purchase it. Mm-hmm. So if I'm trusting them, then I do want to follow the way they want me to do things.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's another thing is if you are good at your craft, having the belief that this is the best, not only for myself and getting the result I'm looking for, but for my client. If they really follow what I'm going to lead them through, they're going to have a much more pleasant purchase experience. They're going to see more value for what they're purchasing. They're going to be happier. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to get them the right product.
Yeah.
So not being fearful, because when you're afraid, if somebody says something to you and you're afraid instantly of rejection, you're going to lose your possible sale, or you're going to scare this person away, then you may not have the fortitude to look them in an eye and tell them the bad news.
For sure.
Or, get into a little bit of confrontation. I don't mean big confrontation, but I just mean not always being a yes person in every situation. In some situations saying, Judah, I understand where you're coming from, but let me explain something and see how that goes.
Yeah.
And that also comes to your people skills, delivering news back and forth. How good are you at doing that?
Yeah.
How good are you at stopping somebody from the direction they want to go, giving them pause, giving them time to consider, and changing that direction?
Yeah, I do think it does take time, for sure. Like, you're not going to be a natural at it right away.
Yeah, in those situations, when you're dealing with someone who's maybe a little bit, they're controlling or they're abrupt or whatever, when you're new, it's not always the easiest to do. It takes time. But you know what? You can still be really successful when you're new. Because, again, attitude, enthusiasm, emotion will carry you through 90% of your clients. Yeah. There's only 10% you really need to learn to deal with that they're like that.
Yeah, I think your hard work and your attitude sets you apart from other people. How were you brought up?
Okay, well, I was raised on a hobby farm. Okay. So we had a quarter section of land. We're kind of somewhat in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
It's all relative.
Yeah.
But anyways, we had horses and we had dogs and cats, and we played outside a lot, and
Okay.
we rode snowmobiles, and
Okay.
yeah. So I was raised in this area,
Mm-hmm.
which gives me good connection.
For sure.
I like that. I connect with my clients a lot of times through
Yeah.
being a local.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's where I was raised.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much it. Thank you for coming
Awesome.
on.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Okay.
having you.
Well, it was a good time. Yeah, I would. I'd do this podcast with you anytime. So.
Cool. Cool. Thanks.
Okay. Cheers.
Okay, that was good. Thank you. Yeah, there we go. Episode 2.
Episode 2, man.